And be like, wow, he was really busy on the 20th. Look, he's twice as.
I'm telling you. Yeah, I was.
What did he do on the
confused as to
26th?
what
Apparently
it
nothing.
was. So,
Oh, sorry, Mary. The Trump one is just doesn't have arms on that one.
Oh, okay.
Sneaky.
People don't like arms.
That is impossible.
But it is.
I'll type it slower this time. Lining up summer programming today. I had a deadline because all the performers booked up super early.
Mhm.
So hopefully we'll have an oddities museum.
If we not, that would be so cool. So I still haven't made it when she's open, the store in Portland, the oddity store. In Portland.
Oh, yeah.
I keep trying, and her hours are kind of a little bit interesting. And I've driven over there twice when they've been closed, and I'm like, oh, made it all the way downtown.
This one's a
No, 3
mobile,
times.
this one's a mobile one that's in an
I
Airstream.
think so.
Yeah.
Whether or not they're gonna choose that particular candidate,
Aha.
because there was.
I'm just
a
gonna
gap
get
there.
worked and then figure out where to put it. It
Sure
was.
there was.
It was with, I put it with, yeah.
Yeah, I want to, like I said, that store, I want to go check that, but that would be awesome. That'd be super.
Yes.
Hello, Mayor.
How are you?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
Amazing.
Well, it's good to hear. Hi, Christy.
She's just smiling at you.
Hi.
Mhm. I have to remember which computer we're gonna be on. There was someone trying to type. There.
See Blackhawk helicopters at the high school.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The what? There's 2 Blackhawk helicopters going to be participating in training missions at the practice field at the high school tomorrow night. I don't think I've ever seen one up close.
Practice field? They're gonna put a
The lower
Blackhawk
field and
down
upper
there.
field.
They're certainly not gonna
Oh.
try to put 2. Yeah, there's not enough room to put 2 Blackhawks in there.
There's
barely enough room for 1.
2 helicopters will be participating in a training mission at the practice field, along with allowing an opportunity for our students to see inside, ask questions, and take pictures with the group. So I don't know if they're gonna put both of them on there, but pretty cool.
Yeah, that's super cool. What time's that supposed to happen?
12 o'clock.
I might have to stop by.
Just saying.
Right.
I want to see how they fit 2 Blackhawks down there. Well, I was doing
Maybe that's part of the training.
one time and we had football pictures when I was coaching. And so I had Debbie run my football stuff up to the high school. And Ski sent the helicopter down to the football field. I got out and changed clothes, did the picture, then put my flight gear back on and we went back out, stole some more dope.
There you go.
The good old days.
I was just thinking the same thing. Before people had cell phones to
Yeah.
look what they did.
Question is, Dave, were you my dare cop when you did that? That's the real question.
Ah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Mhm.
I remember the t-shirts and we got all the stuff.
I really had fun doing that.
Well, we could tell because we had fun because you were having fun. So
Oh, man. No, that's,
That's
that
all.
clock's the one
that's
that's on. I was gonna say.
this one's
They're
that's
that
that one
early.
matches mine.
all just a little bit off.
Yeah, that one matches mine. No.
No,
it's
that one's a little
fine.
slow right
A
now.
little
That
slow.
one's actually connected to something, and so it's supposed to be automatic.
No, it's 30 seconds slower than my phone. It's in my computer, which is tied to the interwebs.
Yeah, don't go off of that one.
Will it come up on too?
No,
No, well, I thought she was doing it, but she's not doing it.
she's not doing research. She was just, she
Gotcha,
was provided
gotcha.
comments. And I think, Scott, is it okay if I just had her to talk, or do you want her to raise her hand?
That's fine.
And so then,
I read it. Oh, I forgot. Her notes are in her stuff's in here.
your stuff's in there
Yeah.
already, yes.
Yes,
Because for workshops, we don't necessarily
do a lot about, yeah.
engage public comment, so.
All right, I call the meeting order at 6 o'clock. Thank you very much for showing up today. Do you want to lead us off, man?
So we had the conversation in July, and the outcome of that was the fire marshal was going to be reviewing a new metric that he was trying over the course of the summer to see what it looked like and to see if it would work and see if there are any kinks. And so we decided to come back at this meeting to review those results and to address the topic again. The fire or the county commissioners did have a conversation about it 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago.
Yeah.
And so there, the gist there, they had a couple of questions and concerns. I think one of them was around whether or not we would continue to allow a public display of fireworks if there were restriction due to fire concerns. And then I think they're going to revisit it again in the spring as well. So I think they're also kind of waiting to see what we will be doing. When we visited this in, I think, January or February of this year, we did talk about wanting to be on the same page with the county, and so having a joint meeting could be beneficial as well. So that's kind of where it's all at. In the packet, I have some examples of what some other areas have with regards to fireworks restrictions due to fire concerns. And they vary, and that's what's there. And then Ann Luters presented some comments that she wanted included in this packet at the last meeting, and so that those are awesome. And then we have our fire marshal here to present the results of the metric.
Yay, me.
Yes.
So I think you guys have this in your packet. I think, I gave it to Liana when we went to the commissioners meeting, and this basically is an outline of what the metric is that I developed, what I'm using as, my data. And it kind of explains how I'm trying to use it and that kind of stuff. I don't know, did you give them?
I gave them all of it.
Oh.
Yeah, I scanned it all.
We have you got the whole thing.
Okay, so there's 2 pages of just the data and the input. And basically, as you'll see on the first page, the fire metric and stuff, and I have the hot, dry, windy index, which is something that's developed by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, St. Cloud State, and Michigan State. And this is not, unfortunately, I'm not sure how long they're going to be doing this. This is, I'm not going to say experimental, but it is something that's in the development stages, and they're trying to track, how this index, and you can use it all over the United States. You can pick a geographic area, and it's to your area or whatever and stuff. So I think it's going to be something that's consistent and that they continue to use, because the Department of Agriculture is going away. Well, I say going away, I'm not exactly sure what they're going to do with the Haynes Index. The guy that developed the Haynes Index has come out in the last 5 or 10 years, whatever it was, I can't remember now, and said that basically I developed this in 1988 and you guys have been using it wrong ever since. So NOAA still uses it. It's basically everywhere. And I originally had intentions of using the Haynes Index, and working with our partners at DNR, they informed me that using the Haynes Index was a bad idea, because it's not being used how it was developed, which I read a pretty lengthy article on the whole thing. And I think the guy's name is Dan Haynes. Anyway, he explained why it wasn't being used correctly, and that when he developed it, it was a starting point, and that they were supposed to continue to develop it. And they never did. They just said, "Oh, this is great, let's use it." And he was like, "No, that's not how it works." Anyway, so this hot, dry, windy index, I think the Department of Agriculture is trying to steer away from the Haynes Index and is going to be using something like this. It's used in a lot of different places. And so that, along with these other things, the temperature, the wind, as it relates to the gorge, specifically I use Dog Mountain for my wind and stuff, because it's Central County. And eventually, depending on how this all works, we're probably going to have to break the county into 2 halves, because everybody knows Underwood's different than Stevenson or, Prindle or whatever. So, and it seems to be for DNR and a bunch of the other people that track fire, that Dog Mountain, there's basically a line they have there, and that seems to be the divide. So that's why I use Dog Mountain as the wind. There's a pretty good website, Wind Finder, and it's extremely accurate as far as it's what all the windsurfers use, and they base all their stuff on, and it seems to be pretty spot on as far as predicting what the wind's going to be and how it changes and the direction and everything. The temperature I just get from the NOAA fire weather page. The fire weather page is what the DNR looks at. In one of our meetings earlier in the year, there was some concern with a bunch of the different fire marshals from the different areas. We have a group of 7 or 12 of us, I can't remember, and we all discussed fire restrictions starting in June. And the DNR guy had the guy that does the fire weather discussion page for NOAA come in and talk to us, because we were kind of all at odds with different feelings about what we should be doing and whether or not we should be jumping into our first fire restriction, which is the open burning of debris. instead of going July 1st like we typically do. There were some people in Vancouver and Battleground, City Vancouver, Battleground, and Clark County. I think they jumped kind of early, and then we had the fire weather guy come in and talk to us because we didn't jump here just because I was looking at the fire weather page and it didn't constitute doing that. And then the guy came in and explained it, and everybody kind of backed up and started July 1st like we typically do. The relative humidity, the fire weather page, and then I used a couple different websites, only because I started out with the Oregon Department of Forestry page for the ERC, which is your energy release component for the fire. And what that is how quickly, if there's a fire started in the trees or whatever, how quickly it will take off, develop enough energy to really get going. I don't know all the science that goes into that, and I'm not going to pretend to. I just kind of understand that, they have levels, and the levels that I have with the ERC here, you'll see a 42 equals a 5, which is, 1 is low, 5 is extreme, right? And those are all levels that the Oregon Department of Forestry and the DNR fire potential page, those are their numbers, not mine. The other numbers are pretty much mine. The 100-hour fuels are not mine either. And I get those particular two I get from the Oregon Department of Forestry and the DNR fire page. The DNR fire page comes out of that, their particular data comes from around Castle Rock. And so I really wasn't too keen on that data because it seemed like it was too far away, and we're a little bit of an anomaly in the gorge here as far as fire weather and that kind of stuff. And so the Oregon Department of Forestry page, I had found early on, and they actually, you can do the North Cascades, which is basically Eagle Creek. And so it's really more prudent for me to use that. And I started using that, and then the page went down for an entire month. And so I couldn't get any data. And so I was using the DNR page, and I had that before. And then at the end of August, the Oregon Department page came back up, and it had all the data. They had never stopped logging it. They just weren't putting it out. So anyway, that's basically this stuff. And the things that I decided to use and working with DNR and looking at different factors and stuff. And then you can see the data here. And then we got a nice, pretty graph that Sarah Kelly, my permit tech over there, helped me develop. And
That's
then,
really nice too.
you like
Yeah.
that?
You
It's
did a
pretty
good job on that.
We put the colors kind of in at the last, just because the colors can kind of tell you with just a quick glance where you're at. And you can see July 1st, that would be considered, yellow would be considered basically high fire danger. And then it goes to very high and then extreme. And I'm using those numbers from the industrial fire stuff that DNR uses. They're high, very high, and extreme. And as you get into the red, you get into the extreme. And in talking with Jeff Bortner, he's the DNR guy. He actually moved on now. He works for Washington State Parks, I guess. I kind of talked with him to try to figure out how to develop this and the numbers I should kind of be looking at. And through several conversations with him, a 4.25 is basically what I came up with as far as that's the threshold for extreme. And once we hit extreme, that kind of sets the table to go, okay, now we need to make a change. And this isn't just for fireworks. I actually really was developing it for the campfire ban and how we move through the summer. And that was my original intention with that. And so in going through this, you can see in July 1st, we started out at a 3.4 and then it crept up. And July 5th, it's a 4.2. And then it drops. And then it slowly builds itself back up. And you can see there's several different times throughout July where it jumps above and then drops right back down. And July 21st, 22nd, 23rd, in that area there, it gets to a 4.3 for a couple days, and then it drops back down. And you can just kind of see how the graph works. At the fair, at fair time, we're trying to use this so we can kind of predict a little bit. And so leading up to the fair, we could see what was coming. And at the fair, I put on the campfire ban, which, because I knew that it was going to shoot, you can see it just shot straight up to a 4, and you knew the weather was going to get worse by the fire metrics and everything else. And so we put the campfire ban on then. And once we put the ban on, we have to have significant change for the campfire ban. And so I didn't pull it off until August 31st, and you can see it, but it steadily just went down. And amazingly enough, I still got hate mail because I took it off. And, you know, we had 2 days of solid rain before I took it off, but, you know, you can kind of see how it works, how it looks throughout the summer. Next year, I'm going to start in June, because I think it's prudent to start well in advance.
We can start tracking it.
Yeah, and this is gonna be a regular thing for my department as far as tracking it, no matter what, you know, what you guys decide to do, or the commissioners. I'll continue to track this because I'll use it for my own benefit as far as campfire bans and stuff like that. We had the meeting with the commissioners. They liked what they saw. They understood it for the most part. They didn't have a bunch of questions, a few. They think it's a valuable tool. They were really kind of wanting to see how you guys wanted to proceed. I think it would be prudent to have a conversation with you guys and the commissioners, so you guys are all talking about apples and apples, or oranges and oranges, whatever. I don't have a dog in the fight either way, you know, as far as whether you restrict fireworks or you don't restrict fireworks, you know, that's, you know, depending on how you guys want to go and proceed forward with this. Like I told you guys in July, though, I think rather than let it be a political football for everybody, so it becomes a talking point or a campaign point every year. I'm not sure how long you guys are, 4 years or whatever, but I think it would be prudent for the fire marshal to make the decision, and just kind of, that way it's not something you guys have to campaign on every time you run. The mayor probably won't get too much hate mail like was read to him in July. If they want to send me hate mail or whatever, that's fine. I got so many friends now, I guess I can afford to lose a few. But I think it's better based on science and some sort of data than emotion and looking outside and going, yeah, I think it's going to be really bad. And then, you know, you just never know. When I was growing up, it rained every 4th of July. I remember it distinctly. It basically rained every 4th of July. So that's what I have. If you guys have any questions, or
Would you see tying fireworks restrictions to the campfire ban?
So-
Just do it at the same time?
if there was, if the metric says, and I would tie the fireworks restrictions to the campfire ban, it would be 4.25. And if one doesn't go without the other. So if it reaches a 4.25 and it's going to be something that's sustained, there's obviously going to be a campfire ban. If it reaches 4.25 and it's going to rain the next day, I'm probably not going to call for a campfire ban, because obviously the weather it's not going to sustain that level of extreme fire danger. right? So, I mean, there is some discretion. But it just depends, you know, if it's building up to a 4.25, and you guys could probably remember throughout the summer what the weather was like. Just before we had the meeting, it was, what was it, July 20th?
Mhm.
It was July 20th. You guys probably remember how hot it was. And if you look at the graph around that time, you can see what the metric, you can see how it was pretty high. And it was kind of jumping up and down right at that time. That's the 23rd, I think, right there. So, you know.
So at the last meeting, you were saying something about red flag warnings and how those can even crop up in the middle of the winter. Would you be wanting to track this through the winter as well?
No.
Okay.
No, because unless something really weird happened, you know, like it got super east wind and dry and no rain for like a month, I probably wouldn't worry about it. As my dad taught me when I was growing up, he was a fire guy. He said, fires in the gorge never last. You can start something on fire, it will never last unless, and he gave a couple factors. And one of the big factors was the east wind. If it's east wind and you get a big fire, major fire, it's going to be bad. The Eagle Creek fire, there was the east wind, and as soon as it switched over, they started to get containment and everything else. And that was always big talk around our house because he was a fire guy. And you know, that's why I have the wind and some other stuff. And I think the gorge is a unique area in that we have such an offshore influence with the wind, and that marine air is coming in. If you're getting any of that marine air, it's really hard for a fire to take off. Same thing happened with the Bull Run fire this year on 25th of August. There was a little bit of an east wind. It started to take off. And as soon as that wind switched, it stayed at 1,900, 2,000 acres, which basically it jumped to that immediately. And like 2 days later, that was it. It just didn't grow. You know, they were still fighting it in the understory and all that, but it was barely creeping. And it's because of the offshore influences and stuff like that. So,
Yeah, your east winds are usually the dry winds.
well, and if you read up on the Yakall burn, it was an east wind.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what I have to go with there. I don't know how you guys feel. I know there was a lot of emotion in the room in July, and I understand that. We have the report for the fire in Underwood. I don't know if you guys have seen it. It was not fireworks.
Yeah.
It was a railroad.
Mm-hmm.
And they picked up, the fire investigator for the DNR did a great job. I think he had 75 pieces of brake and I don't know, 8 pieces of carbon on the side of the railroad tracks, exactly where the fire started. I mean,
Wasn't that part of it?
yeah, he just said it was part of the brake system and stuff like that. And he had video from people driving by. He had video from the Amtrak train that came a couple days before. He had a report from a week before where they had been working on the track right there, and they had a little bit of a fire which they got out, and then the Amtrak train went through a couple days later, and they have video on the front of their trains, and he has a picture of that little bit of a fire that was right there. I mean, he did a great job. It was a very thorough report. So yeah, it was caused by the trains, and it wasn't fireworks. You know, I really, when I talked to the commissioners, we talked about this, and I think that Ann has done a great job as far as trying to push this. But I think education is really the key to changing the behavior. You know, we haven't had any major events that I can think of. We had one event this summer where there was some people down North Bonneville that there was a fire that got started from fireworks.
At the same time as Tunnel 5.
Yeah. And they got that put out pretty quickly, but the biggest thing is education. And I have a program that I got from the state fire marshal's office when I went to fireworks class, and I'm trying to get that to the schools to push at the end of the year. It's a whole curriculum from kindergarten to 12th grade. And they don't have to do the whole thing, but it's age-based, right? And so how do you change behavior? You educate people, right? And if you start a kid in kindergarten and he goes all the way through, and by 12th grade, he's had it every year, just like CPR. How many guys started CPR in 5th grade? Right? I can do CPR with my eyes blindfolded, if they stop changing it. They change it every 5 years, so, but you change behavior by education, and I think if we can continue to try to educate, start with the kids, by the time those kids are having kids, what do you think they're gonna be teaching them? They're gonna be teaching them the right way to handle fireworks and stuff like that. There was some mention made about trying, if you wanna do a restriction, and you could go to just ground-based fireworks only, and there are several places that do that. They only, no aerial stuff, just ground-based fireworks. There was some talk in the commissioners meeting about trying to figure out a safe place to set the fireworks off, and they used to do it down at the port, and I don't know what goes on down there now. I don't hardly get out for the fireworks, but
There isn't restrictions in the port you can do.
yeah, and
A
so,
lot of people go down there.
but the thing about it is, and this is what I only know this because this is what somebody told me. Is the biggest problem is the cleanup. And then you have Ray goes down this year and spends 4 hours with a trash can and a shovel from Crazy Ray's cleaning it up himself, and that's, it sounds like a pretty responsible citizen to me, but I don't know that, an all-out ban, especially if the city of Stevenson isn't on the same page as the county. And that's the biggest problem that I can see. And I don't know where they're gonna go. They were very open, I thought, and amicable to some of the stuff we talked about. Whether it be ground-based or, if it meets the metric, we restrict them. I think that they were really concerned that if we did restrict them, we would push people out into areas where there aren't eyes and in the forest, and what really could happen then. Because, July 4th, it's 4.1. July 5th, it's a 4.2. And you have people out in the forest lighting fireworks on July 4th, and it's an east wind. That could be a real issue. I mean, that could be more of an issue than just having something go on right around Stevenson. You've seen what happened in Detroit Lake and all that when the fires took off over there. Whole towns disappeared. And I know that's what everybody's kind of worried about, but if you push everybody out, kind of the not my backyard thing, and push everybody out and they go out into the forest, what could that potentially turn into? So there are consequences with the decisions that we make, but I know the commissioners were really concerned about if you guys banned or restricted fireworks on the evening of the 4th, if that meant you guys wouldn't allow them to have a controlled environment aerial display. And that's another concern that they had. And that's why I recommend, you guys talking about that. You have until May or June, because you're going to have to wait the year anyway. So you have some time to really look at it and have some discussions with the other heads of state and come together on the whole thing.
Has there been any further discussion with the Forest Service
About,
their lack of enforcing county burn bans and campfire bans and that kind of thing, because they operate on a totally different.
well, it's funny.
process.
It's funny you should ask. When I lifted the campfire ban, one of my hate mail letters came from the Forest Service about not consulting with them.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Well, I was unaware that that was a thing, because I know that we have talked to them in the 3 years that I've been over there. We talked a little bit in trying to, work with the Forest Service and stuff, but the Forest Service, they were not interested in that. And I know Marlon's talked about it a lot, that he's tried to talk to them in the past, and they do what they do.
They do, it's their show is their show.
Yeah.
And they could really care less what everybody else is doing.
Yeah, and so, the one thing that I did do at their request, and I told them, hey, I'm open to whatever. I'm trying to work with all the fire chiefs and, I have a great rapport with Rob, I think. And I'm working with all the fire chiefs and all the fire districts, and I've met with almost all of them now. Because they just felt like their voices weren't heard before. And I'm trying to, get us all together so we talk about things and I don't make unilateral decisions without at least hearing their concerns. Because I think that's only fair. So,
So I know that, the frustration level as far as, getting burn bans put on by the county or the city, and then you can go out on the forest and you can have a campfire. And,
well, the Forest Service is gonna do what the Forest Service does. The only thing that they asked is that I include their link in our memo or our posting for our restrictions, because we didn't have it before, but that was because they didn't seem to care.
so question then, Forest Service, Gorge Scenic. Gorge Scenic is US Forest Service. So how does that fit in with the gorge here when we have a burn ban going on, and yet somebody wants to sit down alongside the Columbia River and sturgeon fish and have a fire? I mean, come on, people, let's
Well,
get our
and-
crap together here and get on the same page.
well,
The scenic
again-
area doesn't cover that. If somebody wants to have a fire down on the bank and sturgeon fish, that's under the county. The scenic area only covers there's certain areas that they manage within their parks. And I think most of them are on the Oregon side.
Well, I can tell you,
They're fired.
Chief, that law enforcement wise, it's very specific that Columbia Gorge is
It's not like
is
that.
Columbia Gorge Scenic, period.
well, and there is a little bit of a disconnect as far as, and that's something else that I'm working on as far as, being able to ticket or do certain things for people that break the campfire bans or something like that. And there's been some issues in the past and stuff, and we're working on that within our own department and with the prosecutor on how to enforce certain things. I know there's some comfortability as far as the fire departments wanting to write tickets, or whether or not the sheriff's office feels like they should write them. And we're reviewing the language, and we're going to try to massage that delicately.
So just to circle back just a little bit, we're talking about how if we were to enforce a restriction within the city or even within the county, right? If the commissioners got on the same page and there was a restriction, that we'd be worried about pushing things out into the.
That's what-
But like the city of Hood River and the city of Cascade Locks and the city of Bonneville and all of Clark County, like they all did this when it reached a certain threshold, right? So in my mind,
Well,
at some point,
So I can't speak to the city of Cascade Locks or Hood River or any of the other cities, but I can speak to North Bonneville, and that is that they absolutely, there's no enforcement, and they still do fireworks down there pretty regular on the 4th of July, the way I understand it. So, and that there are some citizens down there that knows there's a ban, and that it's not enforced, so.
Well, enforcement is a big issue.
And that's the other part of
Because it is a unfunded mandate. And, you rely on the sheriff to respond to all of these calls, but yet sheriff's budget doesn't get any funding to. go out and
so
chase-
that's
chase
the,
fireworks too.
Her reluctance to do any of that.
that's the flip side of the whole thing, and she made it perfectly clear that she would not enforce that. Now, whether or not she still feels that same way, I don't know. Those are all things that we'll have to discuss.
I get that. I mean, I totally understand that, especially on the 4th of July weekend or whatever.
Well, it's not like they aren't busy. I mean, I get it. I know that, they're strapped and I understand that. And I know that the last thing that the sheriff wants to do is go, because I can almost guarantee you what's gonna happen, is put a restriction on, there'll be 100 calls 4th of July night, guarantee it. They're, even if they had the manpower, they couldn't respond to everything.
I think, and just looking at the totality of everything, it seems to me like the city and the county need to be on the same page. And if you make a call about a burn ban, then that's county-wide. That includes the incorporated cities that should be included in that. I mean, it doesn't make any sense for the city, in my opinion, to be a separate, have to have their own separate rules and laws and regulations because the county wants to do a burn ban, or they want to restrict the use of fireworks because of the fire metrics involved.
Well, and like I said, eventually, hopefully it's before, I'm no longer in this position, but eventually the county is going to be broken in half as far as the fire metrics go. And so, and this is something that I struggle with the most, is because right now when we're considering a campfire ban or whatever, or we're considering whether or not we should take off the open burning ban or put it on earlier, all these other things, we have to consider the east end of the county, and it's a different deal down there. And so,
Well, DNR has different zones.
well,
So.
and
so
that
you
zone
may
goes
end-
right up through Dog
right-
Mountain.
Right up through Wind Mountain. That's our.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so that's the thing. So eventually it's probably going to get broke into two different halves. And like you say, it's just it's difficult. And when we were talking about the consequences of whatever decisions are made, yeah, my big fear would be that we'd push everybody out into the forest and there would be a catastrophe.
We have responsible citizens that already don't shoot them off if it's dangerous.
Well, and that's why I say, I think education's the best thing. And what do we do until we get there? We got to look at stuff like this. And, it's like I said, I don't really have a dog in the fight on either side, other than I'm trying to develop something that isn't based on emotions. Because, it was pretty hot in here that night, and I felt for the mayor. I noticed his hair got a lot wider since then, so I figured he must have took a pretty good beating.
You pulled some of it out.
Yeah. So, but I'm not elected, and I've taken a lot of abuse for a lot of years, and so I don't mind a little bit more. And if I can make it something that people can look at and go, oh, well, yeah, that makes sense. I can see it. And then along the way, we try to educate everybody so that, we try to make it so everybody understands and you don't have issues, and people understand that, oh yeah, when I'm done with my fireworks, I got to do this and make sure they're all out, because I don't want to throw them in a dumpster and set a dumpster on fire. You know what I mean? And so there's a lot that goes into it. I'm just trying to give you what I developed over the summer, what my plan is for the future. I will be using it for campfire restrictions. That's a given. Whether or not you guys want me to do this with fireworks.
Okay, so some thoughts. I agree that having a metric-based threshold or a trigger is way better than feelings-based. Looking at this graph, it proves that the danger was not high that day that everybody was concerned about. I also think that there's a difference between personal use of fireworks and public fireworks. So yes, we might have been concerned about fire during the fair, but we didn't have renegade fireworks out in the wild. We had a controlled public fireworks display with grass that's been wet down and recently trimmed, and fire vehicles on site. So there has to be a difference between public display and private use. So we're only just talking about a handful of days, as dictated by when fireworks are allowed to be set off by private citizens. Yes, taking it out of the hands, that my biggest concern is that there's still gonna be some feelings-based tirades. That, yeah, you can't just lean on the fire marshal. You could have done something different. You, Mr. Mayor, could have done something different. You don't get to just cop out and lean on the fire marshal. That's my concern about leaving everything metrics-based. So, but I am very excited about the idea of being able to just point at some actual evidence about the danger that we're facing on any particular day.
Well, and hopefully we'll have it. So, I mean, it's, the graph looks kind of cool or whatever, but I'm hoping. And I'm only hoping this because it's well beyond my capabilities. But someday, if you could pull up the county website and you could see on any given day what that looks like.
So the tying the restriction of fireworks to the campfire ban makes a lot of sense. And I agree that going lockstep with the county on whether to, to take action when fire marshal says campfire, personal campfires, and because of the filter of fireworks being available and allowed to be used, now we get, guess what? Campfire burn, fireworks out. There's only that handful of days where that even becomes part of the discussion. Having that as the trigger sounds great. If the county decides to not take action when that warning that's totally up to them, but that sounds like a perfect trigger for the city to say that is that. I noticed that, I guess it's on Camus. It says that the mayor, after consulting with these different officials, any or all of these officials can, or should not, for me, that should say that if the fire marshal says that we have hit this very dangerous level, then that's that.
Yeah.
It's not even in the mayor's hands to say, no, we're good here. If you say we have reached that level, then discussion is over.
Yeah.
The fact, like, let's say that's my big concern, that there's still going to be an angry mob of feelings-based opinion that says you should have done something different, better, harder, more restrictive. So,
Well,
And they can.
or the opposite.
They can.
You'll get the opposite too.
yeah, what are you doing? Why
Yeah.
did you do that? So, like,
They can run
taking
for
it
mayor.
out of, yeah, right. Fact-based on someone whose job it is sounds Shangri-La. Sounds-
Well, and again, I understand. I mean, I don't go to a lot of these meetings, because I'm not that guy. I'm the guy behind the curtain, I guess you'd say, but, really, my mom used to tell me you can please most of the people some of the time, or,
Some of the people all the time, but not all people.
yeah, something like that.
That was
And
fooling people.
Yeah.
is that fooling people?
I think it's still that-
Same
I think
idea.
it's still that
I
as well.
I gotcha.
Yeah, you're gonna have people that are gonna be upset and they're gonna want something done. And again, that's emotion based. And as far as I'm concerned, you cannot base any decisions on emotion. And it's I know some people will disagree with that. I don't know of any good decision that I've ever made in my lifetime that was based off emotion. That's all I can say about that.
How long you been married?
Yeah, thank you.
I've been married coming up on 20 years.
Well, I've been married 100, 50 for her, 50 for me.
There you go. Most people bet I wouldn't have made it once. You probably wouldn't.
Because it was a very logical decision.
So working closely with the county and staying in communication with them as we move forward, of course, that's the way we should proceed. Doesn't sound like they're willing to do, or that discussion isn't going to happen at the county level until springtime. Which, so long as we make any decision before July 4th,
I think at the June meeting would probably be the
Like
best
that.
time.
last opportunity.
Would be the last opportunity, because if you wait until July 4th, then you'd almost have to wait 2 years.
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
You didn't say before.
There is a year cooling off period. We have to
Mhm.
come out ahead of that. If we want
Yeah.
to have anything happen by 2020.
I think, and I might be mistaken, but I think that I am supposed to revisit this with the board in February.
Okay.
I'm gonna let them know what happens tonight,
Mhm.
and then, they want to revisit it in February. And I think that, and I don't know how it all works, that you guys have a discussion together and just basically say, this is, what we feel and what we're wanting to try to do. And, I think that is prudent.
Okay, so the next question is whether it is after consulting with officials, the mayor can or shall, whatever. Or if it's just the fire marshal has decreed that it is dangerous and there is no, that's the way the ordinance says. that
Yeah,
that's
the
way
resolution or
that
the
will go.
ordinance. Yeah, it's just the language and developing the language between now and then is, I think, the best way to go.
And because we have numbers-based evidence, I'm not opposed to enacting this emergency thing that Robert was talking about before next 4th of July. It says if these numbers support it, the mayor has said, that's that.
Mhm.
Based on these numbers,
Yeah. and
Based on
I'm-
feedback from the fire marshal.
based on the numbers,
Yeah.
strictly on the numbers.
Well,
If
and
I hear that there's
you
a-
would get the numbers from
If
him.
there's a
Right.
personal fire burn
Yeah.
on 4th of July, the mayor should have the power to say, numbers are in, that's that. We're done. Shut it down.
As
Well,
far
yeah,
as,
and-
far as the lighting of fireworks, not
Per-
necessarily
person.
possession
Correct.
or
But
say.
I'm not a big fan. I don't know how you guys, not a big fan of saying no. And like Ann was.
Exactly,
The majority of our customers aren't from here.
that's right.
Restricting the sale of fireworks isn't gonna solve the problem
No.
here.
Well,
Absolutely not.
yeah, and that,
Depends on where they're using them.
well, and so the restricting the sale of fireworks, and we talked about this, and I think I might have touched on it, when I was here in July, but you can, the city can ban fireworks sales, the county can ban fireworks sales. I can still buy fireworks within the county.
Absolutely.
I'll go right down to the Cook Inlet or Underwood, and you can get all the fireworks that aren't legal you want. And when I went to that training earlier this year, it was funny because the training was the state fire marshal's office and two different vendors, TNT Fireworks and then a pyrotechnics group, and talking about illegal fireworks and all that other stuff. It took place on an Indian reservation. And so as we were outside talking about the different fireworks and lighting off some consumer fireworks and then some professional fireworks, the locals all around us decided we would have display wars and see who could do the best.
Oh, gee.
You would be amazed at some of the stuff they had. It was impressive. So, I mean, you could ban the sale. You're not going to achieve anything except that everybody will buy illegal fireworks and then it really gets
I
dangerous.
haven't heard a murmur of that.
Yeah, no, and I would be completely opposed to that.
Nobody's been
Yeah,
even brought that up
Yeah,
as
no.
far as council goes.
Not
I
as far as
think.
council, but
No, it has been brought up, but as far
Yes,
as council's
correct.
discussion,
correct.
that
Well-
hasn't been part of the.
And, oh God, back in 2018, when I started, we also talked about fireworks. And we did a survey and the results of that were about 50-50 for restrictions or not. And I think even David Waymeyer was saying that there was another survey that said the same thing. It's 50-50. So, I mean,
yeah, there was
There's
a
no
public
one-
survey throughout
yeah.
the state,
right.
different areas throughout the state, and they did it was actually some sort of vote or something on the ballot just to see what people thought. And they all basically came in 50-50, 40 some this way, 50 some this way, but and it was back and forth. And so it's pretty much an even split.
Well, talking about pushing people out into the forest. Even if we do a complete countywide ban, people are gonna do what they wanna do.
Well, for sure.
And so whether the city would say no fireworks and quote unquote push people out, or if the county just says no fireworks, you're still gonna get the same individuals to decide, screw them, we're
Well,
going out.
and that's where the education thing comes in, and I'm really, that, Ann brought that up to me, I think last year, actually, when she was trying to get people to get on the banner and stuff and promote safe and sane fireworks, and,
But those are the same individuals that you also have other law enforcement related issues with.
exactly, well,
probably.
exactly, and that's where, Ann had talked to me a long time ago about the education thing, and so then when I was at the training and stuff, I really checked into that, and there's good stuff out there, and it's free, it's amazing, it's free, though, they can download all the stuff. And hopefully I can get it in the schools right at the end of the year. So the kids are like, it's a couple weeks and, because they're already thinking about fireworks then, aren't they?
So Dave, you're saying that it's possible that the same people setting off fireworks, the sheriff might already be headed to their house for something different on the 4th of July?
No, I'm just saying that the individuals that you have issues with as far as setting off fireworks and during a fireworks ban
Mhm,
have probably already had a discussion with an officer at some point.
mhm.
Not necessarily about fireworks.
All right, so the next question, is it truly day to day? So leading up to 4th of July, the numbers are high. Sorry, no personal fireworks. July 3rd, numbers are good. We're back on again.
No, so that's the other thing that we discussed in the meeting, and you'll look at the, on the graph, you'll notice, the numbers are super high, right around, 814, 813. It shoots up, and we had 4.6, 4.7, 4.6 during the fair, and campfire ban, I put it on. It did not come off until 8:30, and that's because of, you can see it was working its way down, and then it would spike for a minute, and it was working its way down. And so I'm not gonna change a restriction back and forth. That's,
So is it
I need
okay, we get that
significant-
number, campfire burn in effect, and then is there has to be below the threshold for X amount of days
no,
to even
it's,
consider it?
I did,
What,
so
how
that's-
do you figure out when that stops? When does the ban?
well, that goes into the subjective part of it, and they're trying to predict the weather and looking at the weather, and so.
10-day forecast, all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
so I'm reading the fire weather report every day. I'm looking at the 10 and 14-day forecasts. I'm looking, the wind finder website has 14-day wind, projected winds. And so I'm looking at all this stuff, and I'm looking at the ERC. And if we look at the ERC from 8/12, let's see. Okay, so the ERC on 8/14 was a 37, and that's a 5, and you can see that stayed up at a 5 until 8/21, and then it was at a 4 for 3 days, and then it was a 3, and then it was a 4, and then it was a 3, and then it stayed down. It was a 2 on 8/30, right? And that's the energy release component. And so I can see that ERC is going to stay up due to some of the other factors. And the energy release component is really one of the main factors as far as looking at this stuff, because if something happens, how quickly can it get out of hand? So that goes really into the factors of when we should decide to pull that.
All right, so July 2nd, you haven't hit the magic number yet, but you can forecast that says it probably will, and it will probably be sustained. Do you call it early, or do you wait for that magic number?
Well, I didn't call it early on the campfire ban. I waited. I waited till Thursday, and I don't think it was at the level, or maybe it was just at the level. I can't remember which day Thursday was.
You're not beholden to the number. If you doing the
If I
math.
see it,
Okay,
if I
it's
see it coming, if I see it
It's coming,
coming,
and it's
yeah.
not gonna get any better. We're done.
Yeah, and what I'll try to do, and this is what I did on the campfire restriction. What day was 8/14? Was it a Thursday?
I don't know.
I don't either. It's my birthday. I have no idea what day that was, but anyway, anyway, I don't believe,
8/14 was a Monday.
oh, so it was before that then. Yeah, so I put the ban on the Thursday before. And because I knew what was coming.
Okay.
And then I didn't pull it until later on. And it's basically has to do with the ERC and, you know, whether or not your fuel numbers are gonna come down, your 100-hour fuel numbers. Clark County uses 10-hour fuel numbers, are too volatile. I watched the numbers and, you know, they were changing way too rapidly for me. I did look at the 1,000-hour, but they don't change quickly enough. I thought the 100-hour fuel was the best way to go there, so.
You know, you're almost sounding like the superintendent trying to call a snowstorm, whether or not they're gonna have school. You're starting to get right up there with the big boys now.
Yeah, no. I'm not even gonna jump onto that. Oh, nice try.
Well, Arnold, thank you for putting all this together because it's,
So,
Thank you.
Well, I hope, I was a little nervous about presenting this to you guys. I know in July it was pretty heated and stuff and you guys were wanting to see something. And I was hoping that I would give you guys something that you could kind of sink your teeth in and would help you, whether, you know, it doesn't, like I said, I don't really have a dog in the fight. Whatever decision you guys come up with is yours to make. I'm just trying to give you something.
personally, waiting to have the discussion at the same time as the county makes sense. Liana was looking for some direction. Giving my thoughts. If there's a personal campfire burn, that automatically applies to fireworks completely. Not even.
Right,
the
takes
mayor
the
can see what
victim
it's
out.
mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. The mayor can, no, the mayor has
It
nothing
just
to do with
is.
it. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, then. If that's works for all of you, then I think that we've got the direction Liana was looking for, and then. I also say that if the county decides not to do anything or do something less restricted than us, then that's no reason why we can't proceed
I
with
agree.
what we've talked about.
I agree.
Yeah, I don't want to be in a situation of us waiting for the other one to jump first.
And
Well, and I think that's kind of, you know, I don't think the commissioners are in a situation where they're, and I don't want to speak for them, where they're trying to figure out who's going to jump first or whatever. But I think really their biggest concern was that, you know, we get in here and now all of a sudden, you know, there's not even a display for people to see. And like the mayor put, you know, it's a different dynamic. It's a controlled environment versus, you know, Johnny on the street
Well, and
corner.
in all
Those-
the
they're
stuff that
separate.
was in all the stuff that was included, that she included the different municipalities, it was like displays versus personal use is not,
Yeah.
they're not in the same.
And then
Not that there wasn't ever a time that displays wouldn't be, but it was just not, they weren't in the same thing. It didn't get cut off.
There are conditions and language within that
Right.
permit.
Yeah, in the city, we issue the public display as a separate permit anyway, and we take in accountability. I could not issue it, or I could issue it, and
stomp on it after the fact.
you know, and in the at the fair, I actually consulted with Arnold on it,
Mhm.
and
Yeah, Rob sent the permit
let me
over.
decide. He let me take the heat, and I did, and that was a good call. So it's not I don't know where the county commissioners are dragging their feet on that. They don't have any displays in the county at this point. I'm not saying that they can't have any. Like if Carson wanted to have something, Arnold would have to issue a permit.
Well, they just wanted to make sure that the ones at the fairgrounds would continue, is what they were concerned about.
They're holding their action on their ordinance. It doesn't cover the fairgrounds. That makes sense. My suggestion is the city council take the lead and force the county to take action.
And that
Because
means
this has
we
been
don't
going on
actually-
for at least 4 to 5 years, and quite honestly, it's exhausting as the fire chief.
So if you want, I can have a
That's my, my.
ready by the next meeting based on this.
Based on this and based
Yeah.
on what we all,
Yep.
we
Yep.
agree that it basically,
Yep.
if there's the.
Okay.
That line, it doesn't, it's not
There's
a,
no way.
we're gonna decide, you get to pick that day or not. This is
Okay.
based on the metrics that we come up with. It's very much numbers based.
Sound good? Yeah. is that
Whatever they decide
Yes.
sounds good to me.
Perfect. Do you want any public hearing on that? No public hearing on that? How do we wanna?
Depends on if there's any interest in being more restrictive. I think this is, well,
Okay.
the council has decided that this is the restriction level that you have been waiting for, or
Right.
trying, the tool that you've been trying to create, and this is
Mhm.
it, so. Is it necessarily?
It's not required.
Is Ann still with us?
Oh, sorry, let me go back to she has the ability to unmute if she needs to. I gave it to her. So,
I have a question, but
Uh-huh.
I'm happy to ask about that after the meeting to the fire marshal. I'm not sure I'm understanding how that restriction is gonna apply. I was under the impression that the metric. So for example, if it was 4.2 on July 3rd, that but then it went right back down again, that there would be no restriction.
There would not, the threshold's 4.25.
Right, but for how long? That's the part that's I think confusing. If it only has to make 4.25 on for one day, then, and it makes that on, May 31st. Does that mean you're restricted for the rest of the year?
No.
Okay,
So that's, and we did discuss that somewhat as to whether or not, if the mayor did ask me if it was 4.25 on one day and went right back down, if I would restrict that. And I said that that's where the subjectiveness comes into it. And me as a fire marshal trying to do my best to predict the weather and through all the metrics that I have, would I put the ban on, campfire ban? If I knew, if the weather showed that it was gonna drop the day after? No, I would not.
okay. Thank you.
Closing thoughts?
Since Anne was able to say something, does Mary want to say something?
Well, yes, of course. Thank you.
Does Mary want to say something?
I think, telling people that it's all emotional makes me emotional. And that there's a lot of other factors, and I'll be writing a letter to the editor about it. It's not just fireworks, it's the noise, it's the pollution. And, we've had fireworks for hundreds of years. Maybe now we need a 3 to 5 year ban, and let's see how we all like it. And yes, I get emotional because it affects me. It's loud, it's obnoxious, annoying. People actually leave our county during that time and go away because they can't stand the fireworks. So I don't want to take up your time. This is a workshop, but thank you for the opportunity. I'll be writing more.
Thank you, Mary.
All right. Meeting adjourned 7:01. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Arnold.